Welcome to another Meet the 818 Chats with, today we have Mr. Moonie Lantion, former FASA president and CSUN alumni, and Professor Allan Aquino of the Asian American Studies here at CSUN. Welcome, guys.
Good to be here.
So today, since we are celebrating Filipino American History Month this month, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on Filipino American history, especially since you, Moonie, and Professor, you both started the Students for Filipino American History Month back in 96, 97 at CSUN.
Yes.
And that was a huge movement. You know, I was a freshman coming in 97, so coming in, the only history I knew was Filipino history.
Right.
So coming in and seeing Filipino American history come into play was just something that was eye-opening for me as a freshman. Even now, because there's so many facets to it, and there's so much to learn still. So that's why we're chatting today.
Sure. Very well. Very well.
So kind of tell me how that started and just,
All right. First off, we have to also mention the person who's not here with us, who was also one of the impetus behind it, which is Elvin Lubrin, who lives in Austin, Texas.
Shout out to Elvin.
Sorry, he lives in Buda, Texas, but no one knows where Buda is. So he lives in Austin, Texas. The genesis really began when there was a need for us as Filipino students. We were noticing that there was really no curriculum. There was Asian American studies, but nothing very Filipino-centric, right? And what we were seeing in other schools, at least what I saw, Tagalog classes here. There was curriculum, and well, we were one of the larger Asian American groups on campus, so we asked, like, why isn't there Filipino-focused curriculum here? Which led to a Filipino American experience course being taught by Asian American Studies, and that was they brought in Professor Elvin Lubrin. From that kind of introduced a lot of us this pioneer class that we had of like, wait, there's a whole like history and experience that is not really talked about. It was a lot of the times that a lot of us the first time hearing about many of these things. We heard some of it in the intro class taught by Dr. Kenyon Chan, but now it's going into in-depth, very Filipino specific. And so from that, the story goes as, well, wow, like all of this happened, and it was in fall of 1995 that we simply said, well, hey, maybe why don't we just ask our newspaper to recognize that October is Filipino American History Month. It was just, can you just make a blurb, something? Right. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. It was a little upsetting.
Yes, of course.
And there was anger, young angry activist students in their like late teens, early 20s. But we realized after a while that all this anger took, wow, the sundial dissed us, and they didn't recognize us. The summer after that, myself, Allan, and Elvin were hanging out a lot in his dorm because he was our resident advisor for a program, and we realized it's not the sundial's fault. It's ours. Because it's not up to them to write about us. It's about us. It's our job to let people know who we are. And that was it. And as we were talking about it, like, well, what are we going to do? Like, let's do it right. Like, we have to be the ones to program it and announce it and make them cover us. And we're called Students for Filipino American History Month. And that's the acronym eventually becomes SPAM, because if we use the F, it's spam. It doesn't make any sense. So we went with that, and just a quirky play on words.
Exactly.
And that was us. There's a little jab there. Let's get spam in there. But that was it. That was the impetus, which was our way of saying, like, it's on us to call this out and make sure people take notice and bring it forward. And then, oddly enough, the year that we opened it, the sundial did cover us. We did things purposefully to say, hey, here's some media for you. Get your photos of us dancing Tinikling and then cover us, And so that's how it started.
That's pretty awesome. So when I came in as a freshman, that was your second year?
Yeah.
Second year of
going.
SPAM, yes.
Second year of SPAM. You guys brought in a lot of activities. I mean, from workshops to, what's it called, performances to like just...
22 events in 30 days.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
31 technically.
The tradition continues today. I mean, you know, a quarter century later, SPAM is still a regular series of student programming here at CSUN, yeah. Going back to the roots of SPAM, actually, we were very fortunate. I think it was in probably the 93-94 school year where Professor Emily Lawson got hired. And she was the one who actually put in the course proposal in 94 for the Filipino American Experience class. So just as she was implementing that class, we were doing our thing. So everything aligned perfectly that fall of 95. And I think one of the reasons why the Sundial didn't want to post our piece was that they didn't know if it was true or not.
Right.
They were like, "Are you guys making this up?" I'm like, "No, this is real." But we didn't have like the research or the anything at the time, and there's a miscommunication. But you know, as Moonie said, a year later, we learned from that experience and just built it ourselves from the ground up. And we were lucky to have Professor Lawson and the Filipino American Experience class to provide that foundation. And we've just been building on it ever since. Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So what's the difference between, oh my gosh, I can't calculate how many years ago, but from when it first started to present time? Like, how has it evolved? Alan, I mean, Professor Aquino.
That's on you. 'Cause I was only involved with the first few years, and then I started my career in the private sector.
Well,
We'll go back to your experience.
Well, originally, SPAM was not exclusively just FASA events, because when we launched SPAM, we opened up the doors to the whole campus community. It's still like that today. Whenever CSUN FASA has a SPAM event, the doors are open to the community at large. I would say that our generation really laid the groundwork. So a lot of the stuff that we established back in the day, that foundation is still being built upon. So like the weekly workshops. Now it's called the Expressions Night. We started, you know, you coined it as All Souls Day the first 2 years, the Open Mic and Arts Festival. And so the weekly workshops, the noontime concerts that we had back in the day, now we have the big show. So we brought in artists like Ruby Ibarra. And, you know, every generation has their own like zeitgeist and interests and styles. So even though the bones and structure of SPAM is the same, every generation brings a different flavor to it.
But the framework that was set down is pretty hefty. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
You were bringing in Jocelyn Enriquez,
Yep.
Rex Navarrete, Dan Inosanto, just heavy hitting names from different sections of society. So that's a hefty framework.
Yeah, the generations today still do that.
Yeah.
And,
But the point also is a statement. I mean,
right.
I what is that, a chip on my shoulder?
What?
But like I wanted to always make noise, and not just within CSUN.
Right.
I wanted UCLA to know it. I wanted LMU, SC. I wanted every college campus in Southern California to just know what we were doing. So I said, we got to go big.
Right.
So we went big. You know, we were like, what are they doing? What can we do? Like, what do we got? I know someone that knows Jocelyn Enriquez. Thank you, Christy. Christy was there to take care of that. So we're like, all right, so see if we can make it happen. Hey, I just met this guy, Rex Navarrete, at a Filipino conference.
Right.
I think we can get him. Well, let's go get him. You know, my friend does Filipino martial arts and knows Dan Santo. So you know, that was Janelle and this guy and Steve. They said, well, let's connect us. And what was interesting about Dan Inosanto was when we first approached him, when he was first approached, they thought, I think his wife said, no, he doesn't do like demonstrations. And we're like, no, we don't want him to do a martial arts demonstration. We want him to tell his story as a Filipino American. So what does he do? He comes here, he tells a story, and still does a Filipino martial arts demo.
Brought his whole creative team. Yeah.
And he was just,
that was great.
Like happy to see that it was the first time to do it. So It was more so just to show folks here that, all right, you don't have the big football program, you're not known across the country. Still, don't think small. Go
Exactly.
big. You can. And that's what we wanted to let folks know, like, we can make it happen. We're going to make it happen, you know?
Yeah, SPAM started obviously with FASA members, even though our reach was beyond FASA and just the CSUN campus. But I do give FASA credit, because this year marks the 40th anniversary of our existence as a chartered club. We were chartered in 1982,
Oh, wow.
and ever since the very first semester, FASA established an almost foolproof leadership model in the way that we regularly elect our leadership, so
Right.
that the club can continue year after year. To this day, FASA is the oldest still functioning, still existing Asian American club, and undoubtedly the most active Asian American club on campus. The first Asian American club was actually the Nikkei Student Association, the Japanese American club. They were founded in '71. FASA was founded like 10 years later, but FASA is the only one remaining. A lot of the other API clubs back in our day, yeah, some of them come and go, but we've been persistent, not just with our club, but with SPAM,
Right.
History Month.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I just did the calculation in my head. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, we made history, yeah,
That's pretty crazy.
yeah.
So as far as knowing that you kind of got the ball rolling in the right direction, like, I don't want to ask how does that make you feel, but how does that, like looking back, like what do you feel that impact, or that, that getting that ball rolling to get SPAM,
Right.
like how does that impact
Um,
future generations?
Couple things come to mind, though, since we're in the theme of History Month. Let's use the quote from Mono Philip Veracruz, like, leadership is incidental to the movement. Movement will still continue. And it would have been great that we did it, and after we left, it ended. That would not have been good, right? That just means that it was only the interest of the few people at that time. So the fact that it has lasted, and we're still talking about it today, and there's programming, that's great.
Yeah.
We didn't have a blueprint. We just know that we're going to do a bunch of stuff, and we're going to make it worth it. We're going to make it impactful and make it good, So how does it make me feel? I'm just glad that I got to. There's something in the DNA of FASA
Yeah.
that is still there that I helped to introduce. Allan and I, and Elvin and Vanessa and JJ, all those, everybody that helped us, Carlo, they helped us to make that happen. And thank you, Alex, for being a very supportive president at that
Right.
time.
Alex
Really
Ray.
gave us the platform and said, yeah, very supportive. So the fact that it's persistent, it's like, okay, cool, I could point to that. That's a little bit of my fingerprints and Alan's fingerprints and Elvin's fingerprints that are still there, and I'm like, cool, we did that. Now, do I expect to go to a FASA meeting this week and say, I'm the guy that, like, I don't care.
No,
No,
of
that
course.
doesn't matter.
Right.
Because what matters the most is that people saw value and importance in it, and it contributed something. Just like the first people that did their first PCN, that was valuable to a lot of people. The first time that people decided to go to a friendship games, or I'll give you another example. Our good colleague Lance Doherty, his
Yes.
idea was to do something called the Hot FASA Nights.
Yep, we still do
And
that.
he still does it.
Still do
so
it.
every time I hear somebody, hey, we're doing a Hot FASA Night, like, Lance Doherty.
Right.
That
I
is-
know it was Lance Doherty. Nobody else knows. No, like, not if everybody else knows. Oh, that was Lance. Like, no,
That's still in our vocabulary.
right. That was Lance saying, like, oh no, this is our this is something that I want to do, and it's persistent because it's a great idea.
Right.
So that's Lance's calling card.
Yeah.
And when I see them, I'm just like, cool, you're still doing it, awesome. But make it yours, please. Don't do
Absolutely.
what we did. Make it yours. It's got to speak to today's students.
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
Right. And in that regard, we can't downplay the relationship, the invaluable relationship we've had with Asian American studies,
Yes.
because that's where the knowledge and the research and the substance comes from. And when the Sundial and other campus authorities knew that we had the backing of Asian American Studies, and later on the backing of members of FANS, the founders of the Filipino American National Historical Society, it really helped institutionalize History Month on this campus. And I, for one, am very proud of that. And, for me, all I am ultimately is just a minister of ideas. I don't tell people how to live their lives. I don't try to program people. I'm just a minister of ideas and intellectual tools. And my hope is that you could take these tools and make something of it. And that's what every generation does. They make and interpret history their own way in their own style. And I've never had trouble advising FASA because the leadership, many of them do take Asian American Studies classes anyway. I always have FASA students in my classes. They do take it seriously and responsibly, and if they didn't, it would not have persisted this long. And when I think of local San Fernando Valley history, that's really astonishing. We really, I think, set a positive trend in education. Yeah.
I want to give one another shout out. You talk about this, the big show. What's it called? That they do a talent.
Oh yeah, now we do the showcase.
Showcase.
Yeah, Spam showcase.
That started because
that goes way back.
That was Anthony Balmaceda and Joanne and Anthony. That was that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
They wanted to celebrate Filipino Americans' talents, and they said, I remember Anthony, I want to do a showcase. I remember the
Still
day
called that to this day.
I remember the day that Anthony Balmaceda told me that, and I said, make it happen. And he did it. Anthony and Joanne, they put it together the next year.
It still goes on to this year.
So those are that's their like that was the whole thing. We gave people like the green light. If you want to do it, if you're just willing to put in the work, and
you can
we'll support you. And as long as it's reasonably a decent idea, and it's well thought out, yeah, make it happen. And they did. Everyone that had a good idea, they went off and did it. It's why, like, we're talking about history, what the genesis of what this History Month did.
Right.
There are some photos in here in one of the performance like the All Souls Day performance where there was a improv group that started there. There was what were they called?
Unit.
The Guerrilla Unit. Well, from that night, Elvin Lubrin moved. He moved to San Diego, and then he took local improv classes out in San Diego. He did comedy sports. Then all of a sudden, I think he moved back over here and decided he wanted to do Filipino and Asian American improv group from everything that he learned because, and he formed Room to Improv and started here in the 818, right? And that has its roots from our History Month, from a long time ago. So yeah, that's and calling back to that attitude of, okay, if you want to do it, you can do it. Like, think about it, plan it out, and just make it happen. It goes to that attitude from this group of people. I'm going to call some folks. Well, one, you this.
Right.
You decided to do it. You're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It can't be Filipino American History Month without going back to the beginning. And that was why it was important to have you guys on. And I've been wanting to do it since last year, but this is the year.
And look at the podcasts that have come out of this review. You have the two fanboys and the casual.
Yes.
Exactly.
Is it Kersha and Harold have another one?
Valley Bread.
Right, Valley Bread, that came out of this as well. There was a website that existed a while back.
Was it Pinot?
No, it's gone. It's gone now. It's gone.
Good guest book.
It's gone.
Great guest book.
But that came from here because and just people that said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make something happen.
Yeah.
And then they go out and do it. So that's the attitude that I saw in FASA, and from this History Month, you just gave people the green light. You want to do it? Go for it. Go do it.
Also, what was I going to say? With the rise of technology, the immediacy of information, I'm glad that the current generation makes use of all the resources they have. My point being, I really like now how knowledge that we were thirsty for back in the day is so much more immediately available now. And the flame keepers of the whole Spam History Month project, in sync with the times, they make an earnest effort to keep passing along that information. So it's really great that this generation of students has so much more knowledge of general history, even before they, take their first class with me. And that's because of this truly community movement of people tapping into their friends' natural talents and abilities. That's how we've always done it, and history is about interpretation. It's not just about describing what happened in the past, and it's about helping us understand where we are now. And when I think of the history in retrospect, wow, we really are stronger and tougher than the worst things that could ever happen to us, especially with the pandemic and all the other, crises that we've had to deal with the past couple of years. Our spirit and our honor of history is, it's unshaken, and that's inspiring. And for a guy like me, who feels like he's just sharing a bunch of crazy ideas 30 weeks out of the year, it's good to see that these ideas are not crazy.
Yeah.
Because you, the community, are the ones making it real. I can talk about it, I can write about it, but you all are the ones who make it real, and that's good to see.
Would you say that there was a direct correlation with your involvement with SPAM to your current decision to be the Filipino American Experience professor?
Oh, absolutely. My story is a mirror reflection of everybody else's story. Second generation American-born kid. I had a self-hating kind of attitude growing up, ashamed of my ethnicity, ashamed of my, my family and so forth. And to learn that self-appreciation, that self-love, as it were, there's nothing like it. For me, it was meeting Philip Eric Cruz for the first time, taking my first Asian American Studies class and being involved with my first PCNs. Yeah. And there's that spark that ignites in you when you're at that age, 18, 19, when you realize, wow, you've been missing out on a lot. And there's a whole world out there that involves you and people like you. And it became my mission to spread awareness of that world and inspire other people to find their connection to it. And that's the great thing. Once you share, the things that we've learned, other people take that knowledge. You're basically giving them new tools, new ways of looking at the world, and they shape their own world in that way. And it's just inspiring to see how these grand, wonderful things can happen from such small beginnings.
Right.
But it just takes a seed to grow a forest. And we've time has rendered justice to what we could only dream about 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, and it's amazing seeing it, because I think a couple of years back, probably a decade ago, we came back. The CSUN FASA reached out and asked for alumni to come and talk about where they were at now, and just being in that room and seeing the energy that, oh my gosh, I'm going to call them kids, that these college kids brought in for that workshop was just, it was inspiring. It was phenomenal, and it just reminded me of back in the day. So it was really nice to see that. Moon, what sparked you to have, I know we talked about, the start of the Filipino American History Month, but what particular experience, or what is it about sharing the Filipino American culture and history did?
Okay, why was it so important to me to do it?
Sorry.
No, it's a good question. I just want to make sure I answer it properly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways I could say this. I'll be as blunt as I can. Typically in FASA in the early 90s, FASA was known to be a very social and party club.
Right.
And it was a great experience. It is a great experience. FASA is not FASA if you're not having fun.
Right.
And that's the draw, that every Thursday, those FASA meetings, it was like, shoot, it's time for the show, it's on. Like, there was an energy in that room.
Oh yeah.
And it was great.
Right.
And you knew that there was something special here. So my freshman year, I had an amazing freshman year here at Cal State Northridge. And then but I noticed one thing. The one thing that FASA was missing outside of the PCN was the Filipino aspect of it, right? Like we're having all these parties, we're going to friendship games, we're doing sports fest, we're doing all this stuff, we're doing these fundraisers and these banquets. What's the difference between this club and any other organization that does the same thing? So I just felt it was more like important for us, like, can we at least introduce our Filipino heritage, something that's ours, so that this is what we do. When I started doing that, I was seen as the militant, activist student, and I'm like, nowhere near am I saying you need to go out and protest everything. No, can we just talk a little bit more about our heritage? Can we do that so that we have more than just the sports and the social? Can we add another dimension to the club? And I wanted that. I thought that was going to be something worth doing, right? But I saw the flip side of that is that I also didn't want FASA to lose its fun.
Yeah.
Because some people don't care for that stuff. They just want the fun things. And I'm like, okay, what if we can offer both?
Right.
Okay? Like the people that are looking for the more like the history and the experience, we have it. But at the same time, the people that are just looking for the sports and the gambling and
To see the casino night.
yeah, all the wild stuff, like they have it too. But what was interesting is like one can feed into the other.
Right.
Like the fun stuff, we can introduce it to some of the other folks, the people that play sports. Like, oh, that's cool. And my thing was, okay, how do we take this thing? Because FASA made everything cool, like fun, hanging out with Filipinos. Like, you know, all right, how do we make our learning about our history cool? How do we do that? And that's what I wanted to do. And really, I wanted an experience to see, like my brother was kind of like that. He was just into sports and socializing, but like what would it take for someone like my brother who not really, doesn't really care too much about this, that would be interested enough to go to something like this because he was completely turned off by it. That's just too political. That's just too political. So I said, okay, that's not who we are. That's not FASA. So let's make it cool. Let's bring in Jocelyn Enriquez. Like, is that history? Like, yes. Pinay recording artist that's charting. That's history.
Exactly.
That counts.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this guy. There's a group called Tongue in the Mood. They're doing performance art.
Yeah,
Let's bring them down. That's history. That's performance art. DJ Hubert. Like that counts. Like it's cool. So we wanted people to understand that history wasn't like, there was a battle here and this happened, and then there were riots in Watsonville, and that's history, but there's more to it than that. So how do we make it interesting and interactive and fun? So that was the challenge, and that's why I wanted to do it, because I thought it was worth doing. And I felt that by the time all was said and done and I left the club, that there was a little bit more balance, but at the same time that we didn't get rid of the fun aspect, the parties, the social, and it better not, because I DJ'd half those parties in the 90s anyway, and that was the whole thing. It's like, I think also just to show, like, you can be a well-rounded FASA member or Filipino member. Get into the history. Go to the parties, gamble with your friends, like go hang out and eat, but be a good student. Like that was the challenge. Like let's be well-rounded and show that you could be all of these things. There's dimensions that you can embrace, and that's just all I wanted to do. Show that we can be all of this,
And I, for one, wanted, certainly our generation up until now, Pinoy pride. Is it just a matter of a t-shirt or like a slogan, or does it have some real substance and understanding behind it, something that's backed by action? And I do feel that our early 90s generation contributed to that shift towards wanting to put more substance into what we do without compromising the social aspects of it. Because, you know, everybody can agree, of course, FASA events are fun, but I think now, you know, more so than ever, as fun as they are, there's also substance there as well, which comes from our relation with Asian American Studies and our knowledge of history. And I remember even before we would organize workshops for SPAM, for PCN, you know, I remember driving to Paral, Filipino American Reading Room and Library, and to even the UCLA library to look up books on the dances, because they didn't have books on the dances here at the OVI. And I remember having to, like, you know, hand write the descriptions. See, nowadays it's different. Nowadays you could find the information ubiquitously and instantaneously. And I like that today when you watch a PCN, oh, there's a complete educational breakdown of what every dance means and stuff. And that info was very hard to come by back in our day, but we nonetheless made the effort and made that change. Because I would say, you know, certainly by the mid-90s, our PCNs, as well as our ultimately became SPAM, yeah, they gained a lot of substance. And it wasn't just us messing around. It was like, you know, we were doing something serious here. And in a way, it was almost like a movement, if you will. And, you know, and if you want to join, you can.
You're right. That was, I remember doing that because I remember our first PCN, we're like, I learned all these dances. I don't know any of them.
Yeah, it's like, okay, why are we doing this? You know, sway balance
like,
thing.
like, where's, like, why? So, like, I remember the next year, we asked, like, can we at least, like, what dance we do, share some research, and, you know, Cheryl and all the PCA courses, they said, like, oh, can we just,
over time,
like, before we do this, like, I remember we had to say, okay, this is Tinikling, this is from Leyte, these are it's for about farmers trying to trap a long-legged bird called the tikling bird. So at the very least, people understood, like, that's what the dance is. Like, instead of just, all right, just learn these steps and not know what they are. And I remember those books.
This is Filipino.
Right.
No.
So, like, we made it a point, like, you're going to learn not just the dance, but where it's from, what it means. And then that, on top of that, then you're like, okay, so not only did you join peace and you learned the dance, you understood what it means and where it came from. It's a reflection of the people. That effort of us going to Paral, I remember going there.
Oh yeah.
And, like, you know, doing the research, and we did the research. They didn't go with us. Like, we were the one. We'll do it for you. You know, like, we want to do this.
Right.
All right, and make it easy for you. Just show up, and we'll tell you. So then that kind of discipline also led to, like, all right, we got the research. Now, how do we bring it? How do we make it digestible to everybody else? Because we could do we could do a dissertation. No one's going to care for that.
Yeah.
So how do we? That was a trick. Like, we have all the information. How do we present it in a way where it's still with that FASA flair? You know.
And I'm sorry. You had a project that you wanted to share during this interview.
Oh, just to mention, I've been given what's called release time in the academic world. I normally have 5 classes every semester. This class I only have 4, but I have release time in which, in lieu of teaching a class, I'm working on what my department is envisioning to be a history project, specifically a history of Asian American Studies at CSUN. Now, we've already documented the history of the other ethnic studies departments, Africana Studies, Chicano Studies, who have roots going back to the 1969 rallies here at CSUN. There were ethnic studies rallies at San Francisco State, but there were also rallies here at CSUN. And the roots of Asian American Studies go back to even to that. But it wasn't until the 80s and 90s that the department was founded. But the history of Asian American Studies here at CSUN, it's collateral. It's intertwined with the history of FASA and the history of SPAM. Over the course of the next 2 years, I'm going to be writing a written history of CSUN Asian American Studies, and I already have stuff to go with. My colleague, Professor Teresa Williams-Leon, already wrote a history of CSUN Asian American Studies. I'm just going to build on that. And the document that I gave our host today is an actual history of FASA that I wrote in '98. So I'm going to build off that. And based on that history, I'm going to come up with a script treatment for what we hope will be a documentary, 45-hour-long documentary, which will hopefully produce, film, and launch in time for our 35th anniversary. So 2024, 2025. In terms of this semester, what I'm going to try to get on is collecting digital archives, specifically from Asian American Studies memories, not necessarily just FASA memories. There has to be a
good mix.
Yeah, but more Asian American Studies specifically. And basically, I want to create a resource so that future generations of students of Asian American Studies and future FASA members can have easy access to our history and know exactly where we came from. So, in a way, building off the dreams that we had like 30 years ago. You know, why can't this history be more common knowledge? Why can't it be more available? Now that we have the size of our community, now we have the rise of all this technology, we can make it happen now. So yeah, in a nutshell, I've been charged with organizing a big history project of CSUN Asian American Studies, but that does connect closely with FASA history. And I'm certainly going to be calling upon all our alum to share any ephemera or photos or memorabilia from your time with Asian American Studies. And I want future generations to know what we did. Yeah.
Awesome. And where can they reach you, just in case they wanted to be a part of this massive project?
Oh, well, you can find me at the csun.edu/AAS Asian American Studies website. My contact information is there, csun.edu/AAS or Asian American Studies. I'm listed under the lecturers, many of your listeners, watchers might have my contact information already anyway, so yeah, I'm not hard to find, but if that sounds like something of interest to any of our alum out there, let me know. I'd be happy to involve you. And if any of our alum still have any archives, it would be good if we could make time to either digitize that stuff or have it sent to me. At this time for this semester, I'm just gathering raw materials. But yeah, over the course of the next few semesters, the end goal is to have this history resource so that every student of Asian American Studies will know their history and FASA history as well. I do want to eventually go to a FASA history project of sorts, but I'm going to build off this first.
Back in the 90s, there was a cross Asian American study, all the Asian American clubs. There was a cross event where all the Asian American Studies clubs competed in the local laser tag tournament. Just want to let you guys know, undefeated.
I remember hearing about that.
FASA undefeated laser tag champions.
So, any last words?
Karen Chung was in our laser tag chance, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, lead actress of Better Luck Tomorrow,
Right.
my good friend. I write about
Jeff
it.
K, Larry Fontanilla, Jane. Last words. Really, after I left CSUN and I did my little stint as doing a blog
The
called
website.
PinoyLife.com. I did what I could. I was trying to see if I could create like an online community, an online website that talked about the Filipino American events at least in Southern California, and whatever I could cover, because I wanted the stories to be out there, people to talk about it. So I did what I could. Then life came calling. So final words about Filipino American History Month. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an educator in an academic world. I work in corporate America. Okay, I work in web technologies and now Web3, blockchain, marketing, all that fun stuff. But it doesn't mean I stopped doing what I do about learning about the Filipino American experience and our history, learning and finding out who's doing what in the community. And what I'm seeing now is an interesting dynamic in that Filipino Americans are essentially mainstream now. Like, ube is everywhere. You know, nobody is like, what's a Filipino? It's pretty well known now. But what I'm seeing in my job is now like, oh, they all now know that October is Filipino American History Month. And so these kind of corporate jerks and whatnot, they think, oh, well, let's celebrate it like we do everything else. So they call it Filipino Heritage Month or some other name, and they don't quite understand what it's for. So that's the new challenge. The new challenge isn't just, okay, well, we did it here in CSUN and it ends. Like, no, the challenge now is like, well, out there, for all the people that didn't have a club or a school with Filipino American studies, there's a bunch of professionals, Filipino ones, Filipino American ones, that never got that opportunity to learn. And we, as the keepers of this knowledge, we can't just store it and forget it. It's our job now as we go into our professional careers to make sure we teach and we share. I'll give you my story. I work for a company and they wanted to celebrate Filipino American History Month. And how they did it was they wanted to have people talk about pancit and dancing tinikling and wearing the butterfly dress and the barong Tagalog. And it's like, so we're not going to talk about Moro Bay. We're not going to talk about why it's in October. We're not going to talk about the contributions of the Filipinos to the history of the United States, and even prior to when this country was formed. And that was a big miss. So our challenge now is to make sure that as this becomes marketing material, you know, for various places, restaurants, clothing stores, where they're going to say, celebrate Filipino American History Month by buying our stuff. It's important for them. You better know what it means, why we celebrate in October, and the difference between what Filipino history is and what Filipino American history is. They're both valuable, but just know what the difference is.
Well, my final thoughts regarding Filipino American History Month. People who know me know that I've been through a lot and seen a lot, that's for sure. And I suppose I could have many reasons to be cynical about the future, considering everything that's happened to us as a species and as a community during the past couple of years. But I nonetheless today am happy and at peace and quite proud of how far we've come in terms of honoring and developing our collective knowledge of Filipino American history. Again, my primary job as a professor and scholar is to be a minister of ideas, a minister of knowledge. I cannot program people or shape how they think, but I can share ideas that, like intellectual tools or gifts, they can hopefully use for the betterment of their own lives and their own communities. And all I need to do is shift my gaze outside of the classroom at the world at large, and I can see that generations today, across age groups, have developed an earnest understanding of our history and culture and have made a noble effort to spread it. And the seeds that my generation planted decades ago, our efforts were not in vain. Those seeds have grown into this wonderful new ecosystem in which information and knowledge is so much easier to come by. And unlike myself when I was a child, very self-hating and ashamed of my Filipino heritage, it's wonderful to see there is an earnest sense of pride among the young today. Even before they come to college, I can see that there is an understanding of who we are. And when they get to college, that knowledge and appreciation grows all the more. So shout out to all of my community colleagues and to all of our youth. I may just be a minister of crazy ideas, but you're the ones who make them real. And I, for one, will always be thankful and proud of that. So, as we say, Akibaka wag matakot. Thank you.